ask me, one of the most underrated 1000cc street fighter / naked bikes on the market is Yamaha's MT-10. Yeah, it gets overshadowed by bikes like the Ducati Street Fighter, Aprilia, Tuono, KTM Super Duke, stuff like that, but those bikes also cost a whole lot more. So Yamaha's solution was to come out with this, the MT-10 SP. And what does the MT-10 SP have that the regular MT-10 doesn't? In a nutshell, the two big differences are the Öhlins electronic suspension and steel-braided brake lines in the front. That's pretty much it as far as mechanical stuff goes. I mean, cosmetically, you've got a polished aluminum swing arm, you've got this 3-piece belly pan deal that the regular MT-10 doesn't have, but that's it in a nutshell as far as the SP goes for the MT-10 over the base MT-10. So you're probably thinking to yourself, why bother? Like, does it really make that much of a difference? Well, having the ability to adjust your suspension settings with the push of a button is pretty nice. You know, is it worth the price hop? That's up to you to decide. But mechanically speaking, we're talking about the R1S engine and frame. So as far as the engine goes, you've got steel connecting rods, steel valves, different camshaft, but you still got the cross-plane crank. You still have that basic R1 architecture, and you definitely still have that R1 cross-plane crankshaft sound, which is pretty darn amazing. And actually, these air scoops here have some sort of acoustic effect to where it pops out of these screens on the fuel tank and kind of shoots that cross-plane crankshaft noise into your eardrums, which I think we can all agree is a pretty darn cool sound. If you're familiar with the R1 engine, then you'll be familiar with the MT-10 engine. So, those two big differences, the Öhlins suspension and the steel-braided brake lines, what benefit do they provide? Well, in the canyons and the twisty stuff, in a way, it seemed kind of strange because it seemed like it was playing catch-up to the road conditions that we were in, which granted, we were on some bumpy, twisty roads and any suspension would have a hard time keeping up with it. But I think with the active suspension where it's always trying to change to the conditions, I think it kind of amplified that playing catch-up feeling some more, where it was kind of in this middle zone of trying to be stiff enough for certain conditions and then soft enough for others, and always adjusting the rebound or compression to give you that ideal ride. When if you're going at a quick pace through bumpy canyon roads like we were today, it's really varying and shuffling. Whereas a manual suspension, the old school suspension, you get what you get and you deal with it and you go. To be fair to the SP, you can manually adjust the shock and the fork through the settings and make it act like your typical analog suspension. I didn't do that because I wanted to see what the automatic settings were gonna do. As far as the steel-braided brake lines, well, you guys should know how that works by now. You get better lever feel. The odd thing about that was, yeah, the brake lever wasn't as mushy as you would expect from rubber brake lines, but the brake feel, the brake bite wasn't as strong as maybe I was hoping for. There's still plenty of stopping power, but just that initial bite and the first few degrees of like lever travel didn't give them as much bite as I was really hoping for. But there was never any fear of not being able to stop. For a day's ride up through the canyons, there's only so much you can get out of that impressions wise. I think the next logical step is to take this thing to the racetrack and see what it can do when you're really pushing it to its limits. And guess what? Here we are at the racetrack to see what this MT-10 SP can do. And yeah, on the racetrack, there's the DNA of the R1, but clearly not the performance of the R1. It's weird because like the suspension works fine. We had to add some preload into it to get some geometry changes the way we liked it. Could still use some more rear ride height to put some more pitch on the front of the bike. But at a track day pace, just goofing off, having a fun time, it was good for that. I think if you're really to get serious about tracking this bike, maybe an R1 would be the better option to go with, but you can still do plenty with this, or opt for just a regular MT-10, mod the suspension that way, and get a good track day bike that way. weird thing with the SP version is the quick shifter is not for the racetrack. The racetrack, a good racetrack quick shifter, you can bang through the gears really quickly with a throttle pinned up or down. Yeah, my problem with the quick shifter was on the upshifts, I had to make my upshifts before it reached redline. Once I got anywhere close to reaching redline, it didn't want to do the upshift without the clutch. On the downshifts, I had to space out my downshifts. This system does not like a quick bang, bang, bang downshift like you would see on a regular track bike. You really have to space out bang, bang, bang. The programming for the quick shifter does not want to see the engine hit redline at all. So it's a very street-oriented system, which is the purpose of this bike, so I guess I can't fault Yamaha too much. I do wonder if a flash would fix some of those issues. Besides that, I mean, yeah, the handlebars, they put your arms up higher, duh, obviously, so it makes getting your head down low a little bit more of a challenge in the corners, but it does give you some more leverage to yank the bike from side to side. No wind protection, obviously it makes more of a wind gust problem if that's something you care about. But again, this is a track evaluation of what is eventually, or essentially, a street bike. And funny enough, we made some very basic suspension adjustments. It was super easy with electronic suspension. You just push buttons and tell it, I want it firmer, I want it softer, and I want front support, I want rear support, I want brake support, I want acceleration support. And then there's also the manual modes too, to adjust the suspension electronically, but via rebound and compression that way. I kind of wish for a tiny little bit higher foot pegs. I didn't drag anything, but it also felt kind of low. I wish my number one complaint was the quick shifter was just not suited for track duty. ABS kicks in a little bit earlier than I would like, so I had to account for that, both in the A1 and the A2, which adjust the ABS intervention depending on your lean angle. It was still, I had to brake really deep to get to activate, but it still activated sooner than I would like. Very minor gripe, but nonetheless still there. You know, the brake feel actually wasn't that bad. The steel lines definitely help with that. But overall, it's a good base package to build upon later with a revised quick shifter, maybe some better brake pads, some more rear ride height, maybe through a different linkage. But overall, big picture speaking, small things to complain about for a street bike taken to a racetrack. Okay, so there you have it. My impressions from a day ride hauling butt on the street on the Yamaha MT-10. My impressions from a day at the racetrack with the MT-10 SP, mind you. All in all, still one of my favorite motorcycles. Highly underrated, granted in a field of very stacked competition. But I think this SP will be able to hold its own. And for the price, 17 grand, you know, that's pretty fair. But yeah, there's still plenty more I can and will say in the written form. So where should you go to check all that out? Right here, Motorcycle.com. Read my full review there. I'll have specs, all the good stuff, even more things for my brain to digest and put down on digital paper. You can read it all there and fill your minds with what this MT-10 SP has to offer. So, until next time, ride safe. We'll see you later.